Often when you are creating a new character, you're going to draw on backstory tropes. These are just common backstories used for characters in popular media. Today I want to go through 20 backstory tropes and talk about a few examples of the trope and how you can use this. So, I have 20 on this list. I have 40 overall, so there will probably be a part 2 to this in the future. Maybe the most common backstory trope in Dungeons and Dragons, and in a lot of media from this list of examples that I found, is that your character is an orphan. Their parents have died, or in some cases, their parents have at least disappeared. Some examples of this are Shazam, Annie, Harry Potter, Superman, Cinderella, Batman. There's a lot of options here that you can draw inspiration from. And honestly, this is probably the most popular trope in D&D because it makes your character start tragic. Before your character even begins the campaign, begins adventuring, their parents have died. And that's an easy backstory to write. It's very popular for things like rogues and warlocks that are a little bit edgier than some of the other classes normally. I think this is a fine one to use, but I also kind of like subverting expectations with this one and having a character that has very happy and loving parents. I think that's really fun too. The outsider is another backstory trope option, so this is someone that's just from a different place. Superman could also apply here because he's from Krypton. Yami from Black Clover is a good example. Aang from Avatar The Last Airbender. And Alice from Alice in Wonderland are all really good examples of someone who's from a different place than where the story takes place. I think this could be a lot of fun in a D&D campaign, and I use this for a couple of my characters. I have played a couple characters that are from the Feywild. I've had players that have played characters that are from the Shadowfell. You could play a character that's from the Outer Realms. The character could be from the Spelljammer setting, and your character has lived in outer space. So I think this one's a lot of fun. This one can be easier to pull from, because you just have to move a character from where they were born to where they're currently campaigning. So I do think one of the most fun things about this, in my opinion, is when your character is from somewhere else and doesn't necessarily understand the place that they are right now. So I played a character from the Feywild that went to the material plane to escape an archfey. And he knew nothing about the material plane. He was confused as to why horses didn't talk. He didn't understand marriage. Like, he was confused by the concept of it. There were just a lot of small things with this character that I thought were a lot of fun. And he was just a very curious guy. So every time the party went somewhere new, he learned something new. And I think that can be really fun to roleplay as. The next backstory trope I wanted to talk about is the commoner. So this is someone that was like raised on a farm or lived with a normal family. This is someone that you wouldn't expect to be a hero. So examples of this, we have Luke Skywalker from Star Wars. He was on like a moisture farm. Frodo Baggins from Lord of the Rings. He was just a hobbit living a very humble life. Katniss Everdeen from Hunger Games. He was a poor kid that was hunting for food, but not necessarily like a warrior. Not someone that you would think would volunteer for the Hunger Games, but she had to protect her sister. Certainly not someone you would think would win the Hunger Games. And I don't think that's even a spoiler because the movie's been out for a while. The books have been out for even longer. So I think this one could be fun. I mean, it's an easy one to start with, where your character was a farmer until something happened. So your character was a farmer until something attacked his farm, or something attacked his family, his village. Maybe your character was a farmer until they learned they had innate magic. So you were a farmer until you cast your first cantrip, and you were like, oh, maybe I could do more with this. Maybe you had a mentor that encouraged you to take risk. Instead of just living your humble life, to go on an adventure, to meet new people, travel to new cities, fight new monsters. So I think this one could be a lot of fun, and there's a lot of stuff So there's a lot of ways you could go with this. Then we have the hunter. So this is just someone that enjoys the hunt. So examples of this would be Kraven the Hunter from Marvel Comics, Ash Ketchum from Pokemon, and then the Predator from the Predator movies. I mean, it's just the Predator movies. And these are people that are adventuring to hunt things. Kraven just wants to kill the biggest or toughest animal. Ash just wants to catch all of the Pokemon. The Predator wants to just hunt. I mean, the Predator goes to different planets to hunt new things. So this is just someone that enjoys the hunt. I had a friend play someone like this that just liked to stalk and kill new monsters. And I thought that was a lot of fun. He was a ranger. It worked out really well. I played somebody similar to this, where the character was a soldier that just liked to fight. It wasn't that it was for any honorable reason. He just liked to fight and he was good at it. That was his big thing. Another backstory trope is a former noble or a noble that is on the run. So you might be part of a royal family, or you might be a lesser noble, like a knight or like an ambassador or something. So examples of this are Simba from The Lion King, Prince Caspian from the Narnia books, and Paul Atreides from Dune. So these are all current nobles that are kind of away from the kingdom for whatever reason. Simba left after his dad died. Prince Caspian, I think, is just on the run. It's been a long time since I've read Narnia. Paul Atreides watched his family get slaughtered. So these are nobles, but they're not in their noble seats. Maybe you're playing a noble that is tired of the noble life, so they leave their kingdom. Maybe you're playing one that wants to explore more of their kingdom, but can't necessarily do that from the safety of their castle. So they leave the castle. They go to smaller villages to help people and to see what struggles people are going through that they might not be seeing. So I think this one could also be a lot of fun. I do like the noble. I think pretty much anything on this list could be fun. I don't know why I keep repeating it, but this one would be fun. I've always wanted to play someone that used to be like a prince, because I think it could be a lot of fun. Then we have family. So this is someone that is related to a different party member. So it could be like the Mario Brothers, or Dora the Explorer and Diego. I think those would be good examples of an adventuring party. The Winchesters from Supernatural obviously fit really well here. So these are people that are related inside of the group and they adventure together. So it's not just a character that has a brother or a sister. It's a character that is directly related to another character. And this could be that you're married to each other. You don't have to necessarily be siblings, or one of you doesn't have to be the parent. It could be that you're married. I think this was the thing in Critical Role's Calamity. There were two characters that were like divorced. In Dimension 20, Crown of Candy, there were two characters that were sisters. I think this could just be really interesting to explore, especially if there's a character death. Because then you have a party member that has to cope with the fact that they watched somebody that close to them die. And I think that can be interesting to explore. So I love the idea of family. I almost played in a like space campaign where me and my friend Joe were going to play two siblings that were both plasmoids. And mine was going to be like a rogue, and his was going to be a fighter that was wearing like a mech suit to look like they were warforged instead of a plasmoid. And I thought that would have been a lot of fun. A very common trope is just the soldier. This is someone that was in a military or a militia. This could be somebody like Roy Mustang from Fullmetal Alchemist, Thorfinn from Vinland Saga, Captain America from Marvel Comics. These were all people that used to be soldiers or are currently soldiers. There's also a guy in Street Fighter that's a soldier. I forget his name. It might be Guile. Is it Guile? But these are people that were in the military or in a militia or something along those lines, and is now adventuring for whatever reason. I played a character like this for my first character, who was kind of the soldier archetype, but also the hunter archetype is the guy that I said earlier just liked to fight. But being a former soldier, he also liked routine. He always had like a buzz cut. He kept his armor clean. He kept his sword sharp. Like he did push-ups during rest sometimes. So these are people that you can play two type pretty well. Or you could play, if your party is okay with it, the darker side of being a soldier. Maybe your character has some dark memories from battles. Maybe he lost a lot of close friends in fights that didn't need to happen. This could be an interesting turn on the soldier trope. And then we have a celebrity or a folk hero. This is just someone that's famous for something. My favorite example of this is in Harold and Kumar, Neil Patrick Harris. He's in the movies as Neil Patrick Harris, and they're always kind of starstruck when they see him. Stephen Sondheim is also in The Unsleeping City as a character, and that was really fun. And then King Arthur is a good example of this. He is like the folk hero. Other folk heroes can work here as well, like Johnny Appleseed. I don't know why that's the first one I thought of. Paul Bunyan and characters like that could work here really well. You could go farther with this and do like Santa Claus. Like anyone that is famous can work in this scenario. This could create a weird dynamic in the party because one of the characters is constantly being recognized, but that could make for a fun dynamic. I mean, the other characters could start to hate the fact that this guy's famous. The only thing you have to be careful with here is trying not to be the main character of the party, which could be a little hard here. Another backstory trope is the fibber, is what I'm going to call it. This is someone that is lying about the backstory. Toby from Naruto Shippuden is lying about being Madara Uchiha. That's, I guess, a small spoiler, but Naruto Shippuden's been around for a while. I'm sorry, guys. It's been around for a while. Jay Gatsby from The Great Gatsby is lying about a lot of stuff in his backstory. Mulan from the Disney movie Mulan is lying about being a man. She is a woman. So these are characters that are just lying about their backstory. I've had this in campaigns before. I had a character change their name because the father was a famous magician, and then they became part of a trio of thieves. So he didn't want to be known as that thief or as his father's son, so he changed his name and told everybody that he was a traveling musician instead of a magician. So I thought that was a lot of fun. I had a character that accidentally killed his wife during a stage production with a prop knife, or what he thought was a prop knife, and he changed his name, grew out his hair, dyed his hair, and pretended to be somebody else. Left town and pretended to be somebody else. So I think this can be a good backstory idea if you want to play a character that eventually has a reveal. The only problem with this is if you don't have a party that's interested in why you're lying, it can be a little frustrating. But I do think this can be a fun one to play as if you want to have that big reveal later in the campaign. Some characters are just curious. So these are people that just want to learn about the world. An obvious example here would be Curious George. But you also have Rapunzel from Tangled, who just wants to know more about the outside world. And Nemo from Finding Nemo, that just wants to touch the bottom of that boat. So these are characters that are just curious about something, and they need to explore it. So the character I talked about earlier that was from the Feywild was curious about the material world and just wanted to learn as much as he could. Some of these backstory tropes can obviously overlap a bit, but these are just people that want to know stuff. There's not much more to say than that. Then we have an incredibly common backstory trope, which is a vengeful character. This is someone who is driven by revenge. Maybe the family was kidnapped or a loved one was murdered. Maybe the village was burned to the ground. Examples of this are Inigo Montoya from The Princess Bride, T'Challa from Captain America's Civil War, Sweeney Todd, Abby and Ellie from The Last of Us Part 2. Both of them work well for this. These are just characters that need to avenge something. This can be an easy one to play as. There even is a Paladin of Vengeance that could work really well with this trope. I see this as a very common one. We had a character that was attacked by eldritch beings. We've had characters that were trying to avenge the village after it was attacked by dragons. There's just some interesting ways that you can take this one. And I really like the vengeful character. One that can be tough to play as, but a little bit easier in D&D where there's an entire pantheon to pick from, is a zealot. This would be a character that is on a religious quest. A god has given them a directive. So this could be Nightcrawler from X-Men, who loosely fits into this. Hedon, I don't know how to pronounce his name. I think it's Hedon from Naruto Shippuden. The character that thinks he's sacrificing people to a god. And then Priest from the movie Priest, that is played by Paul Bettany. So I think these are really good examples of characters that are just driven by a religious reason. This could also work as like the villain from the Da Vinci Code was also a religious zealot, just kind of on the evil side of things. So this is a character that has at least thought they've spoken to a god and is carrying out their mission. Now, there are campaigns that this works incredibly well in. Maybe you're playing like a cleric or a paladin that has gotten direction from a god to help prevent something or to kill an evil enemy. And that could work incredibly well. It could also work a little bit for the warlock. In a different way, warlocks are zealots. They made a pact with a powerful being. It could be a demon or a fae, but they made a pact with a powerful being, and they have to carry out what that being wants. So a warlock could work incredibly well here. Another incredibly common trope, and one that I normally recommend people stray away from, is the lone wolf. This is the edgelord of the group. Somebody that says they walk alone, but they have to walk with a party. So Batman's a good example of this. Everybody calls Batman a lone wolf, but he has sidekicks, multiple sidekicks at some points, and he walks directly with the Justice League, and sometimes works with other groups, like when he's working with Constantine to stop supernatural forces. Leon Kennedy from Resident Evil is a good example of this. He is a lone wolf, but he does work with people every so often. And then Din Djarin from Mandalorian, especially the beginning of the show, like season 1, is a really good example of this as well. The reason I recommend people don't play to this type most of the time is because you have to work with a party. It doesn't work if your character is being resistant the entire time. When you're making a character, something you should always consider is how well this character can work with a group. It is a group game. A lot of people play Lone Wolf, and they're like, oh, I'm not going to help because I walk alone, or I'm going to run into this battle because I walk alone. But that normally leads to a dead character. Like, let's be honest. And that's not what we want. So I like the Lone Wolf as an idea. It is hard to carry out in D&D. You can start as a Lone Wolf in your first couple of sessions, and then your character can gradually evolve throughout the campaign to rely more on the party members. And that's really the only good way for this to work. Another character trope is the sadist. So this is someone who enjoys hurting others. My first character also applies here, the one that just liked to fight. He liked to fight because he liked to hurt people. He was a dark character. He was my first character. And he just liked to fight people. Examples of this would be Pinhead from Hellraiser, the Joker from DC Comics, and Hisoka from Hunter x Hunter, or Hunter x Hunter. I am sorry to anime fans, I read this off the screen, and it's Hunter x Hunter. So Hisoka from Hunter x Hunter. Now, a common misconception with Hisoka is that he likes kids. He just likes to fight powerful people, and those were powerful kids. It's still creepy. Don't get me wrong. But I did want to put that out in the air. I watched a panel at a convention last year, which I talked about in an earlier video this year about villain motivations, where the voice actor from Hunter x Hunter that voiced Hisoka led the panel. And he talked a lot about how Hisoka is kind of misunderstood. But these are characters that enjoy holding others back to the actual topic. And this one can also be kind of tough to roleplay as, especially depending on what your group is okay with. There are lines that you don't want to cross, and this is why it's important to use safety tools in D&D, which I know is controversial, but I do think it's good that everybody at the table should be comfortable. It's still a game. So Sadist can be fun to play, but you have to make sure that everybody is okay with it. A very common trope outside of D&D, and just for like books and movies and stuff like that, is a character that is driven by destiny. Something told them that they were chosen for a specific reason. This can be similar to the Zealot, where like a god has told them they have to do something, but normally there's like a prophecy or something involved. So Neo from The Matrix works well here. Percy Jackson from the Percy Jackson books. So like Percy Jackson and the Olympians, and then I don't remember what the second series is called, where he's also in it, but there's like Roman gods. But Percy Jackson works well here. And then Kratos from God of War works really well here. He's had a couple of prophecies from his first games, where it was prophesized that Olympus would fall to a man with markings, to the later games, where there are multiple prophecies about him and his son Atreus. This can be fun to play, but you also have to worry about becoming the main character again. Like, it's great that your character has a prophecy that they're working with, but the other characters need to be like also the focus of the campaign. So you have to be careful with this one. Next, we have someone who is part of a guild. So they work for a bigger group. This is what I'm going to be using in my next campaign, where the players start out being part of an adventuring guild. But examples of this could be like the Alchemist from Full Metal Alchemist. If you were ever to play a Full Metal Alchemist campaign, your characters could be Alchemist. The Villagers from Naruto. So characters are part of like the Hidden Leaf and the Mist Village and stuff like that. Shield from the Marvel Comics. The Phantom Troop from Hunter x Hunter. So these are all examples of groups that your characters could work in. I think using a group in a campaign as a DM can be an easy way to set a little bit of structure, especially for new players. So I am DMing a campaign on my other channel, Trash Buddy Games, and it's with a lot of people who have never played D&D. So to make it easier on them, they are all going to start as being part of an adventuring guild. And the only prerequisite was that they have to know why they would be part of an adventuring guild. So what is the motivation for the character to adventure? So I think this can really simplify things for the DM, especially when playing with new players. We then have the outcast. So this is someone who has a physical deformity or other characteristic that causes people to treat them differently. Examples of this would be Quasimodo from Hunchback of Notre Dame, the Thing from the Fantastic Four, and then Cyborg from DC Comics. These are all characters that have been treated differently by society for how they look. And this can be tough to play as, but it could be that you're playing as like a goblin or something, and just the way you look makes people treat you differently. But I think the goblin works better for this next trope, which is just a little guy. So this is just a character that's a little guy, you know? And examples of this would be Gizmo from Gremlins, the Oompa Loompas from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, not Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, just because I don't like the movie, and then Wicked from Star Wars, which I think is maybe my favorite Star Wars character. I love Wicked. He's barely in Star Wars movies, but I love Wicked. So these are just little guys. They're adorable, but like they're still kind of dangerous. Like, yeah, Wicked is a little teddy bear looking dude, but he also has spears that he can throw at people. Gizmo is a gremlin. Like, he can physically hurt you. The Oompa Loompas are terrifying if you think about them for too long. These are people that are small, but still kind of scary. So goblins work really well here. I think gnomes work pretty well here. There's a lot of small races, so like the halfling could work here. These are just little guys. Kobolds, dwarves, I don't think feel like they're little guys. They are. They're physically small, but they're kind of bulky, And they give off big person energy. I don't know what that means. Don't ask me, but like, I feel like they don't give off the energy of the small companions. So like the companion races. Dwarves don't feel like gnomes and halflings and goblins and kobolds and stuff like that. Honestly, most of the other small races kind of give off a chaotic vibe. Like gnomes especially and goblins especially just feel chaotic. Kobolds certainly can if you will play them that way. Halflings can feel like very fun, energetic characters if you will play them that way. They're all a little chaotic. And I don't think the dwarf gives that vibe. They're normally a little bit more structured and sturdier. And I mean, hardier. Like they don't give the little guy vibe. I have played so many little guys. I played 2 gnomes that had almost the exact same name because I was playing them in 2 separate campaigns at the same time, which made things very confusing. One of them was a rogue and the other one was a bard. I played a goblin that his face was burnt, so he wore like a metal mask, and he was really fun to play as just because he was a little bit of a naive character. I did play a dwarf. Like I said, doesn't necessarily feel like a little guy most of the time, but this was a dwarf raised by gnomes. So he still kind of gave that gnome vibe a lot of the time. And then I played a halfling that used to be part of a theater group, the one I talked about earlier that tragically accidentally killed his wife during a production. So I think the little guy can just be so fun to play, and it is my favorite type of player type. Like, it's my favorite type of player race, especially. Like, I love the gnomes. Gnomes are my favorite race. And then Goblin was a lot of fun to play, even though I only did play him for 1 session. The last trope I wanted to talk about in this video is a character that has ulterior motives. This is someone that wants to complete the quest for other reasons, such as overthrowing the BBEG or gaining a higher power. So Willy Wonka is a good example of this. He wanted the kids to come to his chocolate factory on like a tour, but mostly because he wanted somebody to take his place as the leader, the owner of the factory. Black Cat from Marvel Comics is a good example of this. She often teams up with Spider-Man, but normally to either take out a competitor or to steal something in the end. Alistair from Hazbin Hotel is a good example of this. He is a demon that is helping the hotel, but mostly because he wants to end his pact. So this is just a character that has something else in mind. I played a character once that wanted to stay in the Shadowfell. He was running from an archfey, and he just wanted to stay there. Didn't want to go home. I've had characters in my campaigns that wanted to be famous or wanted to get more powerful, and that's why they joined the party. Your character doesn't have to be adventuring with everybody else because they want to adventure with everybody else. There could be something else going on there. And I think this can be a really cool thing to explore. So, I mean, you could be playing a wizard in a campaign that you think will get to level 20 or at least close. And your motivation could be that you want to become a lich. I mean, a lot of wizards want to become liches. That's why liches exist. So, I think this would be a fun one to explore and one that I kind of want to explore more in the future. So those are my 20 backstory tropes for this video. Like I said, I will probably do a part 2 to this. Let me know in the comments if there are any characters that you have made that fall within these tropes, or any other examples of these tropes that I might not have mentioned. And other than that, guys, I hope everybody is having an amazing day. And until next time, peace.